We are learning the Sefer Pituchei Chotam from Rabbeinu Yaakov Avichatzera on this Erev Shabbos Kodesh Pרשת Tazria Metzora, double Parsha. We got a bunch of them coming up. So let's get started. We're going to begin. We're actually going to share with you two shtiklach tonight. Two pieces of Torah from Rabbi Yaakov, the one from the beginning of Tazria and the other from the end of Metzora. Both, though, about the bris. So let's begin. Pרשת Tazria Metzora. The Torah tells us, over Yom HaShmini, on the 8th day, Yimoil Bisar Arlosoi, there's a mitzvah to circumcise the arla, the foreskin, to cut off the foreskin on day 8. Okay, this piece of Rabbi Yaakov discusses the Kabbalistic significance, one of the Kabbalistic significances to the mitzvah of milah. And he says by cutting off, by circumcising the arla, there is a hamtakas hadinim. That means the arla represents judgment, represents harsh judgment, din. And by removing that, it's a way of being mamtik, of sweetening the dinim, and that's revealing the divine kindness, revealing a great of a great light of chesed that emanates from the Rebbe Shalom. And he will show how this works through different shemas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, different shemas of Hashem. So let's see what we got. Okay. So first of all, Yimoil, which means to circumcise, is Gematria 86, which is the same Gematria as Elikim. So we already see there's a significance through doing the milah is by affecting the Shem Elikim. And as we've discussed, the Shem Elikim is the Shem of Hashem that corresponds to the dinim, corresponds to the what we view as the harshness or the difficulties, the evil, difficult suffering. It all comes from the Shem of Elikim. That's how we perceive the aspect of HaKadosh Baruch we perceive as being rough. That comes from the Shem Elikim. So Yimoil is affecting that. Now, the Shem Elikim can be spelled different ways of doing gematria with shemas in general, with all gematria. One of them is called the milah, and that means spelling out the name in its entirety. That means spelling out each letter of a word. So, for instance, I have here on the right column, the Shem Elikim is spelled out b'milu'oi. That's spelled out fully, each letter. So Aleph is Aleph. Generally, Aleph is just one, but when you're spelling out the word Aleph, so you have a Lamed and a Fei, you get 111. The same with the Lamed, the Hey, the Yud, and the Mem. Now, previously we've discussed times, there are actually different ways to spell the Shem Elikim, to spell out, let's say, for instance, the letter Hey. You could spell the letter Hey in 3 ways. You could spell it Hey Aleph, Hey, and Hey Yud. So here, this is called the milah Yud. It's spelling the Shem Elikim with a milah of Yud. The milah meaning you're filling in with a Yud. So the Shem Elikim b'milah Yud equals 300. Okay. There's another form of gematria. I think this is called a charayim, which is you take each letter and you add it, as you move on progressively. So you have Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem. That gives us altogether 200. Okay, so the Shem of Elikim, again, each form of the Shem represents different dinim. So the milah is affecting these two dinim. We already affected Yimol was the Shem of Elikim straight up, and then it affects more. And therefore, we take these two shemas of Elikim, we put them together, you get 500, being that they're two shemas. So it's 502 equals Basar. So we see that the milah is affecting these two shemas of Elikim. We go a step further. The word arla, which is the foreskin, that's being removed, is Gematria 305. That is the Elikim spelled b'miluy hey. That's 300 plus 5 because there are 5 letters in the word. That gives us 305. So Yimoil, Besar, Arlasai, we see that the milah is affecting din in a very strong way. What's being revealed? Which aspect of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which shame is being revealed through the removal of the arla? Says Rabbi Yaakov, And the Shem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei also has a few ways to spell it. You could spell it b'miloi Hey, b'miloi Aleph, b'miloi Yud. The Shem, it's called the Shem Ayin Beis. That means you take the name of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the Shem Havaya, and you spell it out using Yuds. So for Yud is always going to be Yud Vav Daled, but Hey could be Hey Aleph, Hey Hey, or Hey Yud. So here we're doing it Hey Yud Vav. Also could be Vav Aleph Vav or Vav Yud Vav. So this is called the B'milui Yudin. You're spelling out the Shem Havaya B'milui Yudin, and the Gematria is 72. That Shem of Havaya, each Shem of Havaya is Gavaldik. The Shem Ayin Beis of Havaya refers to a great mercy and kindness, as is brought down in the Tikunim. So in other words, through bris milah, the harsh judgments become sweetened through divine kindness. That's what's going on. One inyan in the Maisa of milah. Now let's jump to the end of Parshas Metzora. And here we discuss a more sensitive topic, and something that is common in the writings of the Mekubalim and the entire Chasidus. Something that is very worked upon is what's called Shmiras HaBris. And that's the bris that we just spoke about, and is being shemer, guarding it, and only using it in the proper time and the proper way. When someone is not shemer the bris, that causes, unfortunately, not good things. To the extent that the verse in Tehillim that says, "No evil dwells with you," is referring to someone who is not careful in that inyan. And it causes tremendous damage. And that's what the Torah tells us, V'hizartem es b'nei Yisrael mitumasam, v'yamusu b'tumasam, b'tamam es mishkanei asher b'seicha. You shall put the Israelites on guard against their uncleanliness, lest they die through their uncleanliness by defiling my tabernacle. Pashut Pshat is by someone who's tummy who goes into the Beis HaMikdash. The Torah continues, This is the rules, these are the halachas concerning one who has a discharge, concerning him who has an emission of semen and becomes unclean thereby. That's the end of not being shemer the bris. When a person is not shemer bris, you feel shvach. How am I going to do tshuva? This is going to be difficult. But the Chacham teach us, you can't, obviously, ain't shum yeyush ba'olam klal, you can't give up. And they're tikun, the things you could do. And they give us three specific tikun, three things you could do. Number one, toiling in Torah lishma until you sweat. Just like you toiled and you had an emission of something which was impure. So fakir, use your brain, use your mayach to get a orangutan, to get involved in learning to the point where you're sweating. So here you have an emission which is coming from something good. And that's why they're also into, when you do mitzvahs, you got to do mitzvahs with till you sweat. That's a tikun. Number two is fasting, because the Gemara tells us sometimes through eating and drinking too much, so a person comes to being moitzi zera levatol, to having an emission, and therefore fast. Something that was done more often back in the day. Now it's not so recommended, the fasting. But the third is charity, giving tzedakah. Because giving tzedakah is just like, says a person who wasn't careful and wasted seed, so that he allowed sparks, so to speak. He dispersed the sparks of holiness, and he gave them to the Sitra Achri. He let them go to the other side. But by giving tzedakah, you're dispersing your wealth and you're giving it to holy, poor people, that rectifies that which is damaged. So it's, a shukal mida keneged mida in each of these three tikkunim, by learning or doing mitzvahs till you sweat, fasting, and giving tzedakah. With this, says Rabbi Yaakov, let's look at these psukim again. These artem as b'nei Yisrael mitumasam, which tumah should you warn the Jews about? This is mitumasam, this is talking about zera levatala, someone who's wasting seed. So what could he do? We don't want you to die because of this tumah, or while you're still tumah, so go do tshuva. Lo yemusu b'tumasa. B'tam mishkan shebetechem, because this chet, this avera affects the Shechina. So what should you do? The Torah gives us a remedy. Zeis Teiras Hazav. This is the Torah of the Zav. The Zav is Zera Levatola. It's Rashi Tevis, Zera Batola. So what should we do? So we have three things we do. You know, these are the three words that are Tshuva, Tzedakah, Tshuva, Utfilu, Tzedakah. So on top of those words in the Machzor, on Shani Kippur, you have these Kol, Tzaim, and Mammon. Kol refers to the voice you use in learning Torah. It's always important when we learn to say the words out loud. The Baal Tanya writes about that. We got to do the mitzvah not just with our mouth, but with our mouth. So there's a kol that comes with learning Torah Lishma. That's the kol of Torah. Tzaim is the fasting. We want to minimize the tanugim a little bit. And then there's mammon, giving tzedakah. The gematria of these three together is 408, which is the same as Zeis. So you want to know the rectification for the Zav is Zeis. And being that Torah really is supreme in this regard, so it's repeated, Zeis Torah Zav. Kadosh Baruch Hu is always looking for ways to bring us back. And anybody, says Rabbi Yaakov, according to the Gemara in Yuma, that Habal Atar, Misayin, I say. Anybody who's going to come to purify himself, Kadosh Baruch Hu gives him and when we're mitar ourselves and we rectify the bris, we're zeichet to the Shem Ayin Beis, to that wonderful light of Shechina, that when we do tshuva, it comes back to us. So let's take that Zeis Teres Hazav, let's take the Zeis, let's take the Kol, the Tzaim, the Mammon, and with that Zeis, we'll be able to have a gavaldig tikun and feel great and feel the or of the Shem Ayin Beis. Have a great Shabbos.